Khabib versus Poirier.
Yeah.
How do you see it?
Wow. Okay. I see it like this. Khabib is really, really freaking hard to beat. I mean, that's no secret. But Poirier got his weight right. The last 5 fights, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He just looks like a winner. Every time I see the guy, he's got the winning mentality. He's got the mindset. But he's going against Khabib. It's just too difficult. It's a puzzle nobody's been able to solve. So what is Dustin going to do that's so different? I mean, he's got awesome punching power. He's got all that. He's a southpaw. But it's nothing that Conor didn't bring. It's nothing that other fighters that fought the 25 guys or 26 guys ahead of him that hasn't been able to sort of figure out that puzzle. What's Dustin going to do that's different?
Now, I got to tell you, I love watching the fights.
Yeah.
But I like talking about them just as much.
Yeah, me too.
I like the build-up to the fight. I mean, there's a reason that the fight all takes place in one night, but the build-up takes 90 days, and it's just for things like this. And I must tell you, it does surprise me in some regards if we're talking about straight betting lines and we're talking about odds. Every time somebody's in Khabib's spot, and the spot I'm talking about is he's been out for a while. Now, for Khabib, it was because of a suspension. For other guys, it's because of an injury or a contract dispute, but that always becomes the talking point. Well, how's he going to look? And he's been out, and the other guy's been busy, and, ring rust is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, Khabib has, penetrated the hearts and minds of the fans to the point that dialogue is not even coming up. It's as though this guy is bulletproof, and we have fallen for that before. I mean, I could give you the Mike Tysons of the world,
Sure.
the night that George St-Pierre went down.
Yep.
Anderson Silva comes to mind. Nobody's bulletproof. And isn't this a real thing that we should at least, whether it's applicable or not, shouldn't we at least be talking about the fact that Khabib's been out while Dustin Poirier's been winning championships?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a really good point, but you're so right. Up until you just said it, I have not heard one person talking about ring rust with Khabib. Not one person. I think it has a lot to do with, like you said, the reason he's been on a suspension is because he hopped over the cage. Right? It has nothing to do with getting knocked out or whatever, or having an injury. But it's Dustin Poirier has been on a tear, no doubt. And I think it only equals the playing field when Khabib has been out of the cage for that long. So if it does, if we are going to talk about it, we're going to say we're going to factor it in, it only gets Dustin that much closer to being able to possibly beat this guy. So it makes it even more interesting.
For sure, Khabib has a gap between himself and everybody else. For sure, I will concede to that. But if I just look back over history, I mean, let me just go to Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson lost his championship to Buster Douglas in that huge upset in Tokyo, Mike Tyson came out and spoke about it. And if I'm to take him at his word, of which I'm choosing to do, but he said, well, of course I lost the championship. I'm famous. I got a whole bunch of money. I'm doing Diet Pepsi commercials, if you remember. I'm flying all over the world. I'm not at home with my team. I'm not at home. And I'm just looking at it and going, but I don't know why Khabib is bulletproof to that, because a lot of those similarities are there. He all of a sudden is Mr. Famous. He's so famous, Mike, that he's now got political pull in that region.
In Dagestan, yeah.
He's training at the AKA with Javier Mendez, but he lives in Dagestan 21 hours away. I mean, I do think it's a fair question to say how much consistent training is he getting in conjunction with the push and pull of travel schedules, with the media, with all these new friends he's got, all the way up to politicians. And I do agree with you, even in my own analysis, it's really nothing more than talking points, and it really only brings us a little bit closer. But I am surprised no one's talking about it.
I think because Khabib is so... Listen, if his record was 26-1 or whatever, if he had one loss, there would be a whole different conversation. But when you are Khabib, what he did to Conor, I mean, Conor coming out, going up to 170, fighting against the likes of Nate Diaz and looking really good and winning the second fight. And then he gets in there and Khabib just swarms him, right? It's like, this guy is so good that until he loses, Chael, I just don't think there's going to be a conversation around. His mind is so strong. And when you talk about AKA, he's there with the greatest in the world. I mean, he's got Cormier. He's training with big guys, strong guys, great guys. He's got a team of 5,000 Dagestanis that are all kick-ass guys, right? And 4 of them are in the UFC, right? They give him a great look for Poirier. He's not, I know what you mean. He lives far away. He's got the only thing that maybe has something to play into what you said is his new stardom, right? So I heard a story, like, didn't he say, or didn't he have his manager say that if he was going to fight in the UFC again, he wanted like some crazy number? Wasn't it like $20 million or something? So there is a little bit of a Hollywood factoring in with Khabib. He could start believing his own hype. And sometimes the average human being doesn't train as hard. I mean, I'm unbeatable. Look at what I just did to Conor. Look at what I can do to everybody. I'm a monster. I'm unbeatable. And they start to get that, Hollywood factor and all those things factor in. But with Khabib, with his mindset, and that is the strongest tool in that cage, is that mind. And he is just too powerful. He's just too strong. He's too smart. He's from too good a stock. He's too spiritual. There are just too many factors that make me say that jet lag is not going to be a major factor. Or any other thing.
I really think that Mike, I really think if I was putting money down that I'm with you. But I would like to bring up 2 points because historically we would see these. First off, if he's going to lose, how's he going to lose? Are we to make believe that because Khabib is out that all of a sudden he's not as good of a striker or he's not as good of a wrestler or of a submission artist as Poirier? No, I will tell you no. But if I was to look at the Michael Phelps of the world, if I was to look at even Michael Jordan on bad games or Kobe on bad games, and some of these guys that underperformed or got, Lance Armstrong comes to mind, they all did say the same thing. It wasn't that my skills diminished. It was a term that you just used. I didn't train as hard. I got tired. Once I got tired, fatigue set, and all of a sudden my skills didn't matter. I wasn't able to implement them. That would be, I guess, my biggest suggestion. If I was to play devil's advocate and argue for something that we should be on the lookout for, it would just be, can Khabib hold up? Because he has found a way to weaponize pace like the great Dan Gable. He is using that like a pistol against you. And if he isn't training, that's relevant. I also would like to plant this seed for you, just in case I come out to be right and I'll look like a genius. But Khabib historically has had so many problems with making weight. This may stun you and you may have forgot. He's missed weight four.
That's right.
Four times.
Yep.
Having been out, having been jet lagged, having not been training, if we're even right on that speculation, it would seem that just beating the scale with his history is a very real concern.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with all that. My question back at you is, let's use percentages, right? Let's use numbers, okay? Let's say 10 is the best you can be. You're at your absolute best. How many points does Khabib have to come down on the scale to make this a fair fight in your mind against Dustin?
Yeah, and I don't know that I love the Listen, it's probably a 3-point spread, quite frankly. It's probably a 10 versus a 7. And Dustin Poirier's so damn good. I mean, he's got a 12-pound gold belt around his waist saying he's the best in the world right now, in the interim at least. So there would be no disparaging there, but I do think that MMA math, as much as people like to dismiss it, I think it's a real thing. Look, Khabib ran over Conor, to your point. Conor ran over Khabib, to your point. That's something that we can look at with a common denomination. I think it's fair to bring up.
Okay, so here's the other factor. Khabib, let's say he goes in there and let's say he has not the best night, right? What Dustin Poirier's last performance against Max Holloway tells me, because I'm going to be honest with you, I thought Max Holloway was unbeatable. Okay, after what he did to Brian Ortega, I watched him beat Brian Ortega and I went, this guy is the greatest. I mean, he's just too good. He's too great. And Dustin Poirier won that fight. So I'm going to give you this. If some of the things that you're saying are going to factor in and Khabib is going to show up, I'm going to give it less than 3. I'm going to say 1.5 points down. Let's just say the fame, the Hollywood factor, the I'm so good I don't have to train so hard. I'm messing around with DC. I'm hanging with my manager, right? I got all my buddies. You know what? I'm so good I just don't have to work that hard, right? Let's say it's even 1.5. I think Poirier, on a great night, can take this fight. So that's what's going to have to happen, in my opinion. They both come in. If Khabib comes in like he came against Conor and pretty much everybody else that he ever fought, and Dustin comes in even as good as he came against Max, I don't know. It's that pressure. It's Khabib's pressure. It's too much. It's just too much for anybody. It's really powerful.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I think the size helps and all of the skills. But when you do break him down on a more fundamental level, like if you watch him on TV, you go, oh my God, this guy is bulletproof. This guy is unbeatable.
Yeah.
This guy is the true world champion. I agree, and I see the same thing. But if you are a coach, and don't forget, Poirier comes from the ATT, it's the best coach's money can possibly buy.
Yes.
You can game plan a little simpler. As much credit as Khabib gets for being a great wrestler, you could break that down a little further. Like, by example, George St-Pierre.
Yeah.
Would come across the ring and he would blast you before you even realized a fist fight had started. Khabib's different. He pushes you into the cage. Then he's got tricks from the cage to bring your leg out to secure two. Once he's on top, he's again got tricks to hold. I mean, I was kind of a ground and pound guy for 20 years, and I learned from great ground and pound guys like Randy Henderson that I think helped to coin the phrase, along with Mark Coleman, of ground and pound. Khabib is doing stuff we had never even seen or practiced, and I'm able to see it on film. Oh my goodness, this guy's a whole nother level in terms of being on top and keeping a guy down. But to get him there, and that's what he's so famed for, that's what he's so feared, to get a guy there, he does push you against the fence, and there is certain defenses and way to strategize and game plan and eat up some clock and come on. I don't know that Poirier has these skills. I'm just saying, when you watch those 26 fight, man, they were all impressive, but they all did have some similarities. And as far as breaking down and isolating and identifying the problems, the tape is out there, and the right coaches could do that. Everybody knew Mike Tyson was going to throw the uppercut. Everyone knew the hook was no one could stop it. So we're having two different conversations. But there is an argument to be made for Poirier here, and a 4-1 underdog surprises me. It surprises me.
100%. I'm actually in Vegas right now, and I'm going to make some bets on the fight. And I'm really kind of torn because now, especially after this conversation, if I'm being honest, because you brought up kind of another good point, which is not only does Khabib have to come in a little bit less than normal, but you're right. Everybody knows Khabib's game at this point, right? It's just I don't want to say obvious. He's really good at it. And it's hard to still solve that puzzle. But guess what? Conor, look, in my opinion, Conor wouldn't have been able to solve that puzzle if he fought him 4 times. And the reason is because of Conor's bravado. That's honestly, he doesn't want to believe that could be, screw him. I could beat him. I think a guy like Dustin Poirier, you bring up a great point, with his great coaches down in Florida, this guy can find a way over these months that he's been training to sort of figure it out or at least not fall into that trap as hardcore as everybody else did. And now, if we're looking at that same math equation, now you bring Khabib down a half a point or a point, and Dustin goes up a point. Now we have an even fist fight, and it's going to be really, really interesting.
And Mike, I will tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of exclusive to combat, but when you find yourself in a match that is harder than you thought it was going to be.
Yes.
Things can unravel very fast. If you are absolutely convinced, my first takedown attempt, I'm going to get it. You visualize that, you're positive, you really believe it, and your first one doesn't land, you go to and the second one doesn't land, all of a sudden your mind can wander very fast. And we see when those upsets happen, Tyson versus Holyfield comes to mind, when Holyfield was frustrated. You could just see it with your own eyes as the viewer. You could see that unraveling very quickly. Tyson found himself in a fight that was simply harder than he thought it was going to be.
Yep, he bit his ear. I mean, that's the fight.
Yeah,
that's the
literally.
Fight. He was so frustrated that he couldn't implement his normal game plan, right? That he bit his ear. I think the same problem with GSP and Serra, right? I think Serra he came. I mean, I want to talk about an upset. That was insane, right? So you're right. I mean, Conor, when we go back to Khabib Conor, because that was the last fight, not only was everything working with Khabib's wrestling and his pressure, but it was also working with his stand-up. Dude, he threw that overhand right, remember, at Conor and knocked him onto his ass. And it's like, now Khabib is going, oh my God, not only am I a better wrestler, I'm a better stand-up fighter than Conor McGregor in this moment. He looked better, right? So if Khabib goes in there, I'm
Mike,
say,
just to remind you, the relevance of...
Yeah.
Well, to add to your point, but the relevance of him putting down Conor is Conor had just come off of 30 minutes with the greatest of all time in purely stand-up, right? I mean, that's where that was a big, where all of us stood back and go, oh my goodness.
Absolutely right. He's there with Nate Diaz 5 rounds at 170. And here's Khabib at 155, just knocking him on his ass with a really clean shot, right? Because I think Conor thought he was going to go for the takedown, and he went high, and he hit him with a beautiful shot, almost a knockout. So you're 100% right. Another great point that Khabib, look, he's so used to winning and everything working. Dustin Poirier is an upsetter. He upsets people's night. Just ask Max Holloway, right? And the last 5 guys he fought, who was it? Pettis, Gaethje, right? All these guys all got upset by him. He is on a tear. He is really, really smart, and he has figured something out. And I honestly think since he got his weight right, if anybody's going to beat Khabib, I really think Dustin might have the ability at this point. I might be going to put a lot of money on him tonight, buddy. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll tell you, if there was an outside bet, and I don't want to be right on this, but I would make this bet. It would be whether Khabib can make weight. With his history, and then you take a break, one thing we know as human beings is we don't get smaller with time.
That's right.
We get bigger. I'm telling you, that's actually some outside money right there. Okay, not even the question I wanted to ask you. That was to lay the groundwork for this question. Somebody is going to win. Somebody is going to be the champion of the world a week from now, undisputed. It'll either be Khabib or Dustin. My question to you is simply, who do they fight next? And I believe our likely suspects are down to 2, Conor or Tony Ferguson. How do you see that?
I don't see it as Conor. I don't know why I don't see Conor coming back anytime soon. I don't know if it's the money. I don't think he really wants to fight Khabib again. I think he's saying it. I'm assuming Khabib's going to win. Let's just assume for a second. If Khabib wins, Tony Ferguson, okay, and I'm going to go against what I just said a second ago because it slipped my mind for a second. Tony Ferguson is absolutely the one guy that can, I think he can solve. I just don't. How can Tony Ferguson lose against anyone? Definitely. I mean, against Poirier, I don't see him losing, and I don't even see him losing against Khabib. Tony Ferguson, have you seen that thing online about his last 6 opponents and their faces? The last 6 opponents? It's insane what he does to people. I just watched, for shits and giggles, the Cowboy fight again. Right? He lit up Cowboy. I mean, he's a scary guy. He moves at angles that you don't even see coming. You don't know where he is, right? He's so unorthodox. He keeps a pace like nobody. Nobody in the UFC keeps a pace like Tony Ferguson. So I think the next fight, if Dana is looking at the real money fight, if Khabib gets through Poirier, 100%, I think he fights Tony Ferguson. I don't see Conor in the mix, but I think if Dustin wins, I don't know why I think Conor comes back and fights him. That's my prediction.
And I think that argument would hold up. For some reason, the argument, I'm talking about the mandate of the masses, the politics where Dana is going to feel, Dana listens to the fans and the media. It seems that if Khabib wins, it needs to be Tony next. If Dustin wins, then okay, let's revisit the whole damn thing because the division's a little bit of a mess. I don't really know why that is or how that's totally fair, but welcome to the fight game, right? Do you remember back, it was Senator Kennedy, and I forget, Ted Kennedy threatened Bob Arum. He said, I will hold a congressional investigation if Marvin Hagler is not given a shot at the title. And that is how and then Bob Arum said, then that's the fight. And that's how
Hagler Hearns
got his world title. Yes, Senator Kennedy threatened boxing with a congressional and I almost feel, and of course I say this tongue in cheek, I almost feel as though there is going to be that level of a mandate for Tony Ferguson to get his goddamn shot. Now, of course, I'm not... You get what I'm saying.
100%. Tony Ferguson deserves it on levels that I can't even, this guy has had a really crappy time, right? He's just had it when it came to, getting that belt. It's just an awful time for him. So Khabib wins this fight. The world, I think even more than Conor, because you gotta remember, the average person knows Conor McGregor, right? My mom knows Conor McGregor. They all know him. So I do think they'd be, interested in seeing that fight. But the hardcore MMA fans, like you said, the people that are going to be in Dana's ear, the people that are going to be at that press conference are going to be pushing for that fight between Khabib and Tony. And I think it's going to be a barn burner. That's going to be the fight of the UFC, in my opinion. We get to that fight. That's the highest level of fighting I think we can possibly see. It's at a perfect weight. 2 guys that are just unbelievable at what they do. The best, really, I think the best striker in the UFC versus the best wrestler in the UFC. 2 great mindsets, right? They're both just really powerful in their minds. And that's the ultimate fight right there.
And you would have fans that would be 100% sure they were right. I mean, Tony will bring millions of fans that are 100% sure he's leaving there successful. And Khabib will bring an entire country that says, no. That really makes something special. Hey, let me tell you something just on a personal note, because I think you might enjoy this. I was teammates with Tony Ferguson for a period of time at the Rain Training Center in California under Mark Munoz. And the way that gym worked is everybody this size and above goes over here, and everybody this size and goes on the other half of the mat. So I never touched Tony. I never sparred with him. I never drilled with him. The way the gym was set up. But when I would be around certain guys, and I'm sure you could relate to this, that worked so hard and wanted something so bad, that would motivate me. And that would make me go home and reassess and say, Chael, you got to work harder. And here's what the new guys are doing. Here's what and Mike, I watched how hard Tony Ferguson worked. I swear to goodness, I don't say this to make you laugh. And I said, okay, if that's what it takes to be a champion, I'm out. I'm out. This was a who's who of gyms. I mean, this must have had 20 signed Bellator and UFC fight champions coming in and out of this room. We would work so hard. When practice was over, you would go home. A few guys would stick around to work on a little something extra while everybody else is going in and out of the showers. Tony would wear all those guys out. He would then stay in the middle. And whoever wanted to come in and the whole gym's gone. People are in the shower. The coaches are gone. Mark Munoz was gone. Tony would stand in the middle, and guys would rotate on him. And I'm telling you, name guys. If I could tell you the names, and I watched Tony wear every damn one of them out. And when he got done, and no human could go with him, he would go over to the heavy bag. I would leave the gym after an extra hour of just watching him, and he would still be hitting the whole place would be. They'd have turned the music off, and like the lights are getting turned on. It would just be day after day. I wasn't motivated in the least by it. I was intimidated by it, is what I was.
I love the idea that you said, if that's what it takes for me to be a champion, I'm good.
I'll go do something else.
My kids don't have to eat. They're fine. Will they eat for a while?
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
But just to your point, because you were saying that you've never really seen cardio like Tony, and that's so relevant because that's really hard for viewers to see. They always talk about the punches and the kicks, and you can see the grappling. It's very hard to quantify from your television a guy who has turned pace into a weapon.
Yes.
And if you're going to deal with Khabib, in my opinion, you must first be able to check that box off, because if somebody just simply can't hold up, it doesn't matter the sport, who's better, who's faster, who's stronger. If you can't hold up and finish a match, you can't hold up. And Tony Ferguson is one guy. Boom, we can check that box. Now let's talk about who's got the reach. I mean, we can go into the second and third, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But isn't Khabib, though, in your opinion, where does Khabib's, say, pressure and heart come on the Tony Ferguson scale? If we know Tony Ferguson's a 10, what's Khabib?
Man, I have to tell you, that guy is resilient. Now, here's the one thing with Khabib, because he's been so dominant. So I'm using this as a knock against him, but it's unfair. But he hasn't had that same adversity. Don't forget, of those 26 wins you speak of, he only lost one round. He only lost one round. I've never seen him losing positions. The closest I've ever seen him to losing positions was the round he lost against Conor, and largely what Conor did is just stop the takedown and kept it on his feet, was able to touch him a few more times. So I guess the reason I offer that is I do suspect when and if we see Khabib lose, if I am to use the greats over history, and I will again for a third, go back to Mike Tyson, but it was just because they found themselves in a situation that was harder than they thought it was going to be, and they just couldn't hold up. They just cracked them. It cracked them mentally.
Yep, and if anybody can provide that for Khabib, it's Tony Ferguson, right? I mean, that's the one guy in the world that can make Khabib as strong as he is, as powerfully as he is, and the pace that he keeps, right? He's going to go, this guy's better than me. I mean, Tony fights you in a way, it's like he does not stop, and he will not let you get any pace off. Like, I'm telling you, I just watched that Cowboy fight again. Cowboy's a great stand-up fighter. He's got that killer high kick. He could get nothing off. Nothing. He just got swarmed, especially after round one. It is a scary proposition, and I think it's going to be incredible. I seem to think that Khabib has as much heart, and I know what you mean. He hasn't been tested in that way, and he's had a lot of uptime. Like you said, he lost one round, right? There is a mental thing that happens to people. Bro, I don't care who it is. If you're a movie star and every movie you're in is #1 at the box office and you just can't lose, something happens. 99.9% of the people do something that makes them just blink for a second and it changes, right? They get, I don't want to say lazy, but they just get accustomed to something. And I think that's probably, if anything, like you said, to your point, that's what's going to happen with Khabib. He's going to get accustomed to winning, especially if he walks through Dustin, let's say, and then he's going to get to Tony and go, oh shit, I'm going to fist fight. This is something serious. And it's going to be a really hard night for him.
Yeah, and very common. And that's one hell of a prediction to make about Khabib. But, Mike, I'm left with nothing else. The guy has no weaknesses. The guy has shown no signs. So now I have to just make up things that could happen.
Right.
So this is really meant as a compliment to Khabib, but I do think there's something special to see in this fight. I think that he's going to burn some calories, and it's going to be tough. I don't want to overlook the Poirier, but I will tell you this. I can never make a guarantee to you or the viewers as to what's going to happen in a fight. But when you were talking about Khabib versus Tony, I can guarantee you one thing, which is Tony will not wilt. And most guys do wilt to that pressure. If they go out to fight and it's scheduled for 25 minutes, them boys from Dagestan had damn sure bet ready for 5 rounds.
Absolutely. Question for you, Chael. Your expert opinion. What is the outcome Saturday night? Just in the 2 top fights, let's say, what do you see happening? Just have you given a prediction yet? I don't know if you've already done this in another podcast, but what is your prediction?
I will tell you this. I think that Felder is going to win in an upset. And I think it's going to go decision. I also think Khabib wins by stoppage in the 4th round.
4th round stoppage, and I agree with you 100%. I think Edson Barboza will never be the same, quite honestly, after Khabib. That was one of the ugliest fights I have ever seen in my life. And he looked great in his last outing, but I don't know. A guy like Paul Felder, I love the way he looks lately. He's fantastic. He's got a great mindset. I think Felder takes it as well. And I like Khabib round 4. I'm going to probably say, I'm going to go with 3. I think Khabib stops him in 3. Yeah.
I think it goes that way too. Now, I will tell you this, because you brought up Barboza, a big misconception though, because it's not factual in other sports. Most sports is about experience, and the more you play, the better you get, and you learn certain things, and your strategies change. Fighting is one of these sports where that is false. You leave a piece of yourself out there every time you walk in there. You don't get better with fighting. You get a little bit worse. You took a little bit more damage, and you're finding a way to not take that damage in the future, which means to not exert and do quite as much. You learn things about yourself that are largely negative. I don't like that. I don't like getting kicked here. I don't like getting punched there. It's kind of the opposite of some other sports. So I don't know how much experience, I guess, when you bring up Barboza, some people are going to look at that and go, well, he's tougher than ever, and look at that beat. It's like, no, the opposite happens. It takes away from you, and those kind of nights can change a career. They could take a year or 2 off a career.
Absolutely. I think Edson Barboza before that night was throwing dynamic spinning kicks, the likes of which I really thought he was going to run through the division. I thought for sure he was going to be champ. He's a really dynamic stand-up fighter, right? Strong, really, really powerful core, does an awesome kicks, fantastic. But that night, I believe I'm a little bit shocked he's still fighting. I mean, honestly, that was a really, Khabib, I think, wasn't that the fight, or was it Michael Johnson, where he had him up against the cage and he was going, you don't want this. Come on, tell me, just stop. You don't want this, right? It was some crazy thing. It's like, that'll mess with your head too.
So we have a mutual friend, Ryan Parsons. And if I remember the story correctly, Ryan was in a sauna with Khabib one time. Just to put into context how tough Dagestan as a region, as a culture is. He was in a sauna with Khabib.
Yes.
And if these numbers aren't right, I'm close enough to make my point. Okay. Khabib said in whatever village he lived in, it has a population of 2,000 people. Of those 2,000, 18 have Olympic gold medals. Yes.
Wow.
These are some rough sons of guns out there. Just to put in perspective for you.
Right, out of the 2,000, which was my graduating high school class, by the way, right? And we had 0 Olympic, okay? We didn't even have an Olympic hopeful.
Of course!
We didn't even have
an Olympic hopeful. That would be normal.
Right. I'm from Cranston, Rhode Island. We got to check the record books. I don't think anyone has been to the Olympics, right? But he's got 18 people. That is great. I mean, that is just incredible. The mindset that is instilled early on. Of course, we've all seen him wrestling the bear, right? We've all seen Khabib's dad, right? These are very powerfully spiritual, strong-minded individuals. And that really is something. I mean, that counts for so much. I mean, it's just so much. You can't, I mean, Dustin's from what, Florida, right? As much as I love the guy and as tough as he is, he trains in gyms. These guys are wrestling bears. You know what I mean? And they're surrounded by really, really, really tough guys. And yeah, that's a real tough thing to overcome too, right there. Just that mindset that's been instilled since birth, that Dagestani toughness that you're not going to get really anywhere else. We don't know where Tony Ferguson gets it. Where does Tony get it? He just gets it because it's in his mind. He's so powerful. Like he's just, I don't want to say crazy, but he's a little off center. And I think that makes him, that kind of equals the playing field. You know what I mean? He's really, he's a strong, mentally strong guy too.
Yeah, and when you grow up in Dagestan, I mean, quite literally from day one, you are expected to be the world champion. Not number 2, not number 3, not a top guy in the area or an all-state or have a letter on your Letterman shirt. You are expected to bring home a gold medal. Right. And I guess it's just a different, I just find it fascinating. It's just a different mindset. And apparently, if we're to look at that as a focus group, it's achievable. If you take X amount of people and you tell them from day one, you're going to go be the best on earth, apparently it's achievable.
Absolutely. Khabib did it. He's the absolute best. He's undefeated. I mean, you're a fighter, Chael. You know this better than anybody. It's really difficult to have 26 fights and not lose one. You didn't have an off night. Like you said, you didn't even lose a round. You didn't have an off night. You didn't go in there one night and go, my shoulder hurts, my ass hurts. Nothing. You won every single round. And that has to be there. There's a deep, deep, deep-seated toughness. And it comes from, like you said, where he's from, how he was raised. And that stuff that's really, really hard to compete with. So it's going to be a tough night for Dustin. Maybe I'm not going to put the money on him. I don't know. I'm back and forth on this one. I got to let you know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. And whenever you're talking about Dustin this way, I mean, how disrespectful. The guy's got a belt around his waist right now that says he's the baddest man on earth, but it is something special. You are talking about a one-off. You're talking about once in a generation, once in a lifetime talent. He's up against it. We'll certainly give Dustin his due, but let's see how that goes. Mike, anything else to get off your chest?
No, that's it, brother. I can't wait for the fights. I hope to talk to you after the fights to see how our predictions were. And that's it. I'll let you know if I'm a rich man after the fight or if I need need to borrow some cash from you. Depends on how it goes.
All right, we got 3 predictions. Let's run through because we agree. So we're taking Felder, we're taking Khabib, and we're taking that Ferguson gets the next crack.
Absolutely. And you're taking round number 4 stoppage. I'm taking number 3. We'll see how we do. I owe you a beer if I lose, okay?
Boom. We'll recap soon. Thank you, Mike.
All right, pal. Talk soon.
All right, guys. Mike Soccio. Well, let's see how he does. Fun guy to talk to. Super fan right there. And I must tell you, I'm in the same category. My career started as a fan. It will end as a fan.